Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of What Cause Inspires You. I'm your host, Allyship, and today I have with me Anouk. I am the founder of the What Cause Inspires You podcast and founded it for students to be able to share the service they're doing in their communities. We encourage youth, like Anouk, who are making a change to improve the world, to speak up about their stories and become a leader in the movement. Anouk is a 16-year-old spoken word poet and organizer. She is the founding executive director of Celebrating Differences organization, an organization focused on promoting neurodivergent awareness, allyship, and inclusivity. She has spoken after prominent figures such as Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, peace activist Gandhi, and San Juan, Puerto Rico Mayor Carmen Cruz. And her work has been recognized by the Los Angeles Review of Books and the Times Herald and more. We are recording this presentation and will post the video on YouTube by Saturday and the audio on Spotify by Friday. Anouk, it's amazing to have you here with us today. Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
So you are the executive director of Celebrating Differences organization. Can you just start off by telling us a little bit more about this organization?
Yeah, for sure. So Celebrating Differences, we're a youth-led nonprofit modeled organization. And so basically the work we do is we're focused on promoting neurodivergent advocacy, awareness, and also allyship. And so basically what that means is we kind of do a lot of like grassroots community work just to kind of provide services or like help like integrate neurodivergent community members with the larger community. And so, yeah, we do a lot of like local projects and then local events. And then we're also slowly working our way up to doing more national level projects.
Awesome. And you mentioned a few words when talking about your organization. Neurodivergent was one of them, allyship and inclusivity. Could you explain a little bit more about those terms and how they fit in with the mission of this organization?
Definitely, yeah. So for students or like for people who aren't familiar with like what neurodivergence is, it's basically like, I think when we talk when a lot of students kind of first learn about it, it's like, oh, kind of like autism or like ADHD or Down syndrome, just different, I guess like characteristics that people have where their brains are wired slightly differently. And like, I think where a lot of students kind of learn about it is like at schools, most schools have like a special education department. So all students, in order to like qualify to be put into the special ed department, they all have to be neurodivergent. And so, yeah, it's just like kind of, that's kind of how we look at it. And then there's also like a bunch of different subclassifications, but yeah, that's kind of the general overview. And then allyship is basically when you have like people that aren't from like a specific community going out of their way to like stand, I'm going to try not to use the word, but like to support that specific community. So for instance, like when we're talking about like allies to the neurodivergent community, then it's talking about people who aren't neurodivergent, people who are like what we call neurotypical, who are like going out of their way to like help advocate and uplift the voices of these neurodivergent organizers and activists.
Wow, that's really beautifully put and hopefully did shed light on a little bit more about CDO. But kind of going back in time, how did your inspiration for this organization come about and where have you reached so far?
Yeah, so definitely. So my brother is neurodivergent. And so I think growing up, my mom was very involved with our kind of local community and our church community because they have a really great like neurodivergent kind of Sunday program. And then so I've always been involved in the community growing up. But I think like as I slowly got older, I realized that one like big thing, because I kind of started getting into like, oh, the whole youth activism like movement. And I realized that with a lot of like other causes, it was really easy for people who are like allies to kind of just jump right in. Like maybe like people didn't have experience firsthand with I don't know, like gun violence, but then you see a lot of young people mobilizing around like the nation, right? But what we realized was like when we were talking about neurodivergent advocacy, we look at like these advocates and activists, and a lot of people, which is like not a bad thing, but like almost the entire demographic is people who directly know, who are like family members or friends with someone who's like neurodivergent. But then again, that also kind of like limits the amount of awareness that's spread, right? So I thought it would be like really interesting and also just like really important to kind of talk to people outside of that immediate bubble of the neurodivergent community, to say like, oh, here's how you can become an ally, and like this is the way that we can like help uplift the voices of people who are kind of already doing the work. And then so that's kind of where it kind of started off. And so in addition to like also allies, our team is also comprised of like kind of like 50-50 neurodivergent youth and then neurotypical youth. And so basically our goal for the organization is like to kind of amplify the voices of like kind of neurodivergent individuals who have already been doing this work. I think instead of kind of like taking that lead as like allies, which is, I guess, something I don't know if I want to get into, but like a lot of organizations have been like doing, which isn't exactly the best, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. And if I could just go back to a statement you said earlier about, diversifying the community that's in touch or supporting these neurodivergent, whether it's students or people of older ages. I do think that we need a broader awareness for this cause. And the reason I say that is because I actually helped at a dance class I taught for children with developmental disabilities. And it was one of the best experiences ever. But, the people coming in, we had this one day called Buddy Day. And they essentially bring, whether it was an ally or a guardian taking care of them, they bring them in to show the dance that we've been learning. And you start to realize that most of the community are people who are relatives or are friends or really close friends. And outside of that, there's not much support to uplift these children. And that was something that stood out to me, especially since some other movements are going really fast. I do think this is not one to be left behind. So really commendable work that you've been doing. But just in your perspective, what's an experience that has stuck out to you, or even your responsibilities as an executive director of CDO?
Yeah, I think probably one of the most memorable projects we do every year, like when there's no COVID, is basically in Saratoga. So I'm from Saratoga City in California. We hold the annual Celebrating Differences Carnival. And so it's kind of a 3-hour long carnival, and then it's free of cost for all like neurodivergent families and then allies in the city. And so it's always really fun when we put that on, because we get to see like everyone in with their families, have a great time, and we have like different game booths and then also like snacks and performances. And it's just always really nice because like we do this every year, and then so like after like each year we'll like sometimes see the same people over again, and it's like great to see like, oh, like they've grown, and then see their parents again and everything. And it's just like a really great experience, I think, to see kind of our entire community come together, and just like kind of like what we were talking about of expanding like neurodivergent awareness and allyship. It's really great to also see people who like maybe weren't as familiar with like this specific community in our city come in and then learn more and then get to like make friends. So that's always really great. And just like even outside of the immediate community, sometimes we have people drive from like 1 to 2 hours north or south of like Saratoga, which is like really great and just like really heartening to see that people are willing to come out and like share space with the community. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the beauties of creating an organization that does specify on a specific cause. Because you not only get people who are directly affected by that cause, in this case, neurodivergent individuals, but you also get people who might not have known about it, but it touches a heartstring and you have a certain empathic draw, and now you want to be part of that community. You want to uplift them. You want to attend events like the one you were talking about. So I think that's simply amazing that we are drawing more attention through different events. If you want to speak really briefly about any other projects that CDO has in store?
Yeah, definitely. So coming up, so over the summer, actually, we launched a virtual art lesson series. So it was one of our first like national projects. And so basically what we would be doing is like once a week, we have these like art lessons using accessible craft ingredients that people would have at home. And since it was like launched during the start of quarantine, I think it was a really nice way for us like to make sure like a lot of students who like maybe weren't getting as much interaction time like through online school, we're getting kind of that like one-on-one-ish with like different like teachers and volunteers and doing like hands-on sensory projects. And so we're going to be launching that over kind of our spring quarter again. And so we're working on that right now. Something else that we are kind of like working on right now too is kind of with online school continuing, what we've seen just like from like personal experience or like from like the experiences of our siblings is that for a lot of neurodivergent students who do have IEPs, which are individualized education plans, which basically give them like special services that will help them like learn better or help them like fit to the environment better, like therapy or like special accommodations for testing. A lot of students aren't receiving those specific provisions in their IEPs since everything's online. And so what we've seen is that a lot of school districts have been trying to like weasel out of maybe like providing like, oh, therapy twice a week or something like that, just because since everything's online, it's kind of easier for them to like not provide these services. But what like basically nothing in terms of legislation has changed at all. So basically that was a long preface, but basically the project that we're working on right now is kind of spreading awareness to a lot of parents, especially parents whose students are just entering like the public school system. Like, oh, this is what your like the law around IEP says, and this is how like you can advocate to like your principal or like your superintendent about like, oh, what rights your students deserve, right? And so we've been trying to get the word out, because what we've been hearing is that like a lot of parents either go in like unaware of like the current situation, or like they are aware but then they don't know how to like advocate, or maybe they don't have like the resources to do so. So we've been kind of trying to spread the word, and also putting together a lot of resources and toolkits for these parents and students who are self-advocating.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's honestly one of the most beautiful things about, I think, education in general, is it's not only a awareness building tool, but it also helps people realize the resources and steps they can take to make change. Even if they did realize this was a problem, they might not have known how to take that change. And I think that's amazing that you're really bringing awareness, especially in this times like the pandemic. There's a lot of challenges going on, obviously for students, for administration too, but I don't think that garners that any child should be left out. Any student should be treated any differently. And if they need accommodations, I think, it's law, and that should be fulfilled to its fullest. So amazing work that you are doing, Anouk. And, I think we can just close it off by saying how people can get involved. We've been talking about, building this really grand community and trying to get as many people involved with neurodivergent individuals. So what can our audience members do to help and support CDO?
Yeah, definitely. So right now we're active in 6 locations across the nation. And so basically all of the work we're doing right now is virtual. So regardless of where you are, like even in the US or outside, we do have 2 also members that are international. Like if you want to get involved, you can feel free to kind of contact us through our social media handles. But basically the work that you'll basically be doing is like also working with us to kind of organize resources and then work on advocacy. And we are also expanding to legislation advocacy too. And so, yeah, there's a whole breadth of things for you guys to do if you're interested. I guess like ranging from like more formal advocacy to more like community, like one-on-one work, whether that's like craft sessions or something like that. So yeah, definitely a lot of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anouk. Honestly, it was a pleasure having you at What Cause Inspires You today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Just for our audience members who are interested in getting involved or getting in touch with Anouk at CDO. The Instagram is at celebratingdifferences.org. This cause was super important to obviously Anouk, but to everyone at Humanity Rising, and we do want to support organizations like Anouks and help them grow and reach as many people as possible. So please do not hesitate to reach out, see how you can get involved, even if it's just attending an event and supporting the community around you. My email is, for anyone who wants to get in touch, allyshipgupta2020@gmail.com. You can also follow www.humanityrising.org to sign up for our email newsletters and stay in touch about our scholarship opportunities, future podcasts, and events. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you again at next week's podcast.